Well, that's the longest pour of coffee I've ever done into a small mug. That was almost unbearable, even for me. I hope the listeners enjoyed it. Well, guys, welcome to Stoner's Point, a podcast where we try to at least drink coffee every episode.
How else are we going to keep living?
Well,
I mean, it's the blood of life, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll give you that. Coffee is the blood and reefer is the body.
Yeah, sure. We can go that route.
Body
It
of
works.
Christ.
No, Christ has already been used. We got to come up with another name for our cult. Yeah, that's where I get stuck at too.
Well, I mean, I have so many heroes that work for different things, you know? Like, I've always wanted to get a wall of pictures of heroes, and some of them are villains, but heroes to me in certain ways, right? Like, I got this picture of Charlie Manson, and I want one of old Jay Stahl, you know, fucking Joseph Stalin. I want one of Rasputin. And they're like ideologically very different, but there's certain attributes of all these people I like. You know, even Jim Jones deserves a place on my wall of fame.
All right, I'm drawing a blank on him.
Jim Jonestown.
Yeah, I'm still drawing a blank.
The cult that moved to Guyana and like 1,000 people committed suicide.
The Kool-Aid gang.
Well, it was actually Flavor Aid. It was cheap knockoff Flavor Aid.
Yeah. Okay, I'm on board now.
Yeah, me and Jessica are definitely going to do probably a several-parter on Jim Jones because that story is a long one. But today we can get done in one part.
Oh yeah, another little hero.
or villain.
We're going to start talking about Dracula. Well, no, not the blood-sucking guy from TV. The real one. Yeah, there was actually a guy walking on this earth that actually had the name of Dracula as a kind of a surname. Well, I guess the story starts off with pretty much his father, Vlad II Dracula, in this little itty-bitty territory of Romania called Wallachia.
Wallachia. Yeah, I had to go through all the slides real quick because for some reason OBS turned them backwards.
Wow. Hey, thanks, technology. Way to work.
So yeah, I got Vlad's portrait up there.
But these guys were part of the House of Basarab back in old Romanian times, and that house broke off into two separate groups. One, the Draculesti, and the other, the Donesti. And these houses really didn't get along all that well. Somehow or another, old Vlad, he became, the vassal ruler of this little territory of Wallachia.
Talking about his dad?
Yeah, his dad, what they call a voivod. Voivode or whatever the hell.
Voivode, I think.
And basically that's kind of like a vassal king. You know, you're a ruler of a territory, but you're still, part of the whole.
Yeah, you're a franchise manager.
Yeah. It's in this little southern region of Romania between a mountain range and a river. So it's got some nice little boundaries. Could have been a country of its own, but, I don't know what happened with the politics of the past, and, maybe it'll get interesting enough to have to delve into that a little bit more.
Central and Eastern European history is really, really strange.
Right?
we might have to do like an episode just on like Southern Central Europe and, get Wickle on or something, to talk about it because there's a lot of weird shit still going on. Like it's compared to us, but they have such an ancient history of it. You know what I mean? And that's something, that one of the reasons Dracula is such a big deal over here, whereas over there, he's not as, you don't find many Serbian or Romanian or Transylvanian podcasts about Vlad Tepes because they don't care anymore for the most part. He was once a very big deal, though.
Oh, he was yes. I think everybody in the region knew exactly who he was at one point in time. Now, at this point in time, it's you've got little Romania sitting up here. It's the time of the Crusades.
Yeah. Romania was part of Hungary.
Yeah, so you got the Hungarian Empire up there, and then down on the southern side, trying to expand, you have the Ottomans.
Yeah. Well, the Hungarian Empire was Roman Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had the Ottomans, which were Muslim. But right there, nestled in between where Wallachia was Greek Orthodox.
A little bit of that, something different. Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, these well, the tensions were a little high between these areas with the Ottomans, and during this time, Vlad II, Dracula, the father of the one we're actually going to be speaking of, was trying to come into some kind of a peace arrangement.
Yeah,
treaty with
Mahmud.
Mahmud, yeah, the father Sultan.
Yeah.
At this time, and the Sultan invited him down for a meeting. He showed up. He came in with his two sons, Vlad III and Radu III.
Well, the next slide over is this slide here is a picture of, it's like a woodcut engraving of Wallachia.
Now, these two sons are his second and third sons. His first son does come into the picture later on, but he's not a big player in the whole story. Now, when he gets down to this meeting, it seems it was a ruse, and the Sultan took them all captive. It didn't last very long. About a year later, somehow Vlad talked his way into being released, and the Sultan said, okay, sure, you can go up there, you can be my puppet vassal, but I'm keeping your sons, just to make damn sure that you follow the rules. And we're going to raise these guys our way so that when you're done, we have more friendly people to put into that place. So that was their style at the time. Well, that peace didn't last all that long.
Yeah, and there's an argument of it. It's like, he knew good and damn well, what would happen. There was this other child, I think it was two of them, that the Sultan had entered a similar arrangement with their father, and the children had communicated somehow to their father, and the Sultan found out about it. So he had Vlad and Radu watch him fucking burn out these boys' eyes, blinded them. So this was a known thing. It was you don't fuck up, or this will happen to your children.
Right, you play by the rules, you'll be treated fairly, and they were.
Yeah, the boys were actually well treated.
Yeah, they were able to go through the education, the military training, the whole 9 yards. The Ottomans were actually raising them to be allies.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty smart plan, honestly. I mean,
absolutely.
But and the slide I have up now is Vlad II. The picture I was able to find of him. It looks like a cave painting. It's fucking weird.
Well, you're talking about from the early 1400s.
Yeah, and you can also find
art was still developing.
I didn't save the picture of it. I don't think. Actually, I know I didn't. But you can actually, his house, the house that Vlad III was born in, is still up, and people. It's in a neighborhood. People live in it. It's so weird to live somewhere that somebody like Vlad the Impaler was born. Somebody could be written in that room right now.
Well, yeah,
with jerking off. To
it's now a 3-story building.
Yeah, jerking off to Romanian Pornhub. And yeah,
my spunk landed in the same place as his.
Exactly. It's so weird, man. We don't have any of that here.
No, well, give it a few hundred years.
Yeah,
we'll get it.
We'll get there.
Eventually, somebody's going to be living in the same house as Trump. 200 years from now,
they'll still be finding documents.
Okay, but back before we go off on a whole nother tangent. A new crusade was being started about this time when Vlad was released, and Vlad decided he was going to somewhat support this little crusade against the Ottomans.
Are we talking about 2 or 3?
2.
Okay.
Number 2. While his sons are still while his sons are still captive, Vlad II supports one of the crusades. I do not know which one of the
there's so many
that they are.
crusades.
8. there were 8 crusades at that particular time. I think we had the 9th during our little period. But I don't know which one this was. But yeah, he joined one of these crusades, and it kind of pissed off the Sultan a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing is, he knows, like Vlad too knows that Radu and his little emo brother, big emo brother, and Radu, when Radu fucking is taken by the Sultan, he's only 7. I don't know how old fucking Vlad was. I want to say around 12 or 13, getting extra sulky and broody at this point in time, pimples on his already beakish face, but it's. You got to figure, it's like they know that their lives are in their father's hands, and they hear the news.
They hear the news.
They're watching Ottoman Fox News, and they find out their dad is moving against the Sultan. So they're just sitting there looking at each other like, well, I guess he don't fucking care about us.
Now these guys, Vlad the Third and Radu, have been trying their best to stay alive and stay in the good graces. Well, at least Radu has. The Sultan and the Sultan's son, Mahmud.
Yeah.
Mahmud and Radu actually form a good relationship. Some people say it's a very good relationship.
Oh, yeah.
But regardless,
there's
they were
more
friends.
than one reason they called him Radu the Handsome.
Yeah, they were good friends. Vlad, not so much. Vlad had his sights set on his future from day one.
Yeah.
He always knew he wanted to take the throne of Wallachia.
Like when he was watching their military, doing their military classes, he was gathering intel, whereas Radu was just going to school.
Yes.
But this was really all Radu had known since the age of 7, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Radu was only 7. Vlad was 11 or 12 at the time.
And so, yeah, he would have had that, beginning of a feeling of home being elsewhere.
Yeah, he was already being trained in Wallachia to take the place of Vlad II. He's already had the mindset, the training, and all that.
And that was Mahmud's ultimate plan anyway, was to put Vlad in his dad's place.
Yep, that was exactly the plan. That way they would have, hopefully, a friendly vassal there.
It worked out well. I think their plan, everything came through as followed, and the Sultans had no problem out of Vlad III,
But Vlad II, having pissed them off, got them. The Turks started to put in some underground propaganda in Hungary and in the southern Romanian area. This guy Hunyadi, one of the general in the Crusades, decides to start supporting one of the Dynasty family tribes by the name of Vladistad II, not to be confused with the other Vlad type people here. And it ends up with Vlad II, Dracula, being assassinated.
Yeah, well, we got to go into why they were called where the Dracula thing came from.
Guardians of the Christian faith, man.
Yeah, they were a special kind of like night order, like special forces for the Vatican, kind of.
Orders de Draconis.
The Order of the Dragon, and their job was to basically keep the Muslim Ottoman Empire from passing through Wallachia to come into Hungary. They were kind of the demilitarized zone, and they were guarding it.
Yes.
So his dad was Vlad Dracula, Order of the Dragon, and his son became Dracula, son of the Dragon.
Right.
So that's where all of that comes from.
By the old translation of the language.
Yeah. They were basically special forces. They were SEAL Team Ricks.
Now that his rival Vladistad has the throne, so to speak, of Wallachia, old Vlad Dracula III here is pretty pissed off. He is now part of the Turkish military, and he's been on some campaigns with the Turks and earned his rightful place. Now, whether he did this as a friendly thing or just as a means to an end is up for debate. I'm thinking it was on the latter. He just wanted to learn what he had to learn, do what he had to do to get to where he needed to be to do what he needed to do.
Yeah, I think Radu wanted to survive, whereas Vlad wanted to win. He wanted to avenge his father's death, and like there's a class of nobles, the boyars, which they're like the oligarchs in Russia and America. They're basically like the people with all the money that hold all the land. That when a franchise manager like Vlad Two or Vladishav wants to move, he goes to the boyars, and the boyars will either back him or not back them, and they'll send their support or not. And so, I mean, there's a deep political, like, there's more politics in Wallachia than there was anywhere else because it's such contested territory.
Yeah,
And the boyar class kind of held that down.
Yeah, the boyars, the landowners, for a little bit of a reference there. They have the vested interest in the area because they own the land. They made sure to keep people in power that they could control.
Yeah, yeah. Not like anything that goes on now. Not at all.
But sometime in the late 1440s, old Vladistad, having wanted to seal his place, decides he wants to go on an excursion into Turkish territory. They were thwarted, and in that battle, Dracula actually earned his right from the Sultan to it's time to go take your place. So let's get rid of this guy that came and attacked us, and let's put you in place because we know we can't trust this guy now. So we need to replace him. So they help Vlad, and he goes in and sends old Vladistad running. So Dracula, the third, the son of Dracula, he finally gets his first reign on the throne.
Yeah, yeah. First of three. And he has the throne for all of what, like 2 months?
It ain't very long. He did start to do some things. He immediately started working on the transportation area so he could move things and start building on some fortifications.
Yeah, and he actually goes like when you look at like the map as you kind of follow his story of his campaigns and whatnot, he's all over the place in this. Now, if you take Hungary, Wallachia, and northern Turkey, which is all this part that's kind of involved, right, and Serbia, if you take this area, it's probably about the size of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas thrown together, right? It's big, but it's
it's a European country.
It's a small European. It's big, but it's not so big that it's impossible. But at a time when everything's horse and buggy and rocky terrain, his ability to get from one place to the other all over both of these kingdoms, all three kingdoms, is pretty impressive for the time. And he made that happen. Really.
Oh, exactly. More so in his second reign because he had more time. Unfortunately, during that particular time, the Turks didn't finish the job when they ran Vladistad out of the Ottoman territory. And he was able to
drum up support,
to flee into Moldavia, the neighboring area, and reamassed his forces. He hid in the court. No, that was Vlad from that. He got back up into Hungary and reamassed his forces, and then attacked and defeated Vlad's forces. It was only a few months after taking the throne. Now, Vlad had to flee into Moldavia and hide in the court of Bogdan II, which is actually his uncle.
Every time I hear Bogdan, I think of Breaking Bad and the car wash owner and his fucking eyebrows. Every time I hear Bogdan, I'm like, ugh, this guy.
Well, while he was there, he continued his studies with his cousin, Stephen the Great. And it wasn't too much longer, it was just a few years later. The relationships up in the Romanian area started to weaken. Hunyadi and some other guy here, Vladislav's relationship, they fell apart for some reason. Unknown, it's unwritten, we don't know exactly why. But Hunyadi and Vlad joined forces. And so Vlad goes in there, swears allegiance to the new king of Hungary, and was given full authority to defend Hungary from the Turks.
Yeah, they basically said, hey, yeah, you have permission to go back home.
He does a few battles, a few campaigns, and he earns his place back with the Hungarian rules. and was given authority to go and dispose of Vladislav. So he goes in, and Vladislav has to flee. He isn't taken out just yet. So now Vlad's back on the throne for a second time.
Oh yeah, this time he's a little bit pissed off at certain classes of people who helped him get usurped the first time.
Hell yeah,
he was already
now
mad.
Prince Vlad, son of Vlad the Great, and he puts his reign into full freaking swing. He helped Stephen overthrow the rule of up in Moldavia, whatever. Moldavia. Yeah, that one. And then he focused on his home before he started focusing on foreign relations. He needed to clean his own house first.
Yeah.
Make Wallachia great again. He meets up with the boyars, these landowners, and he's like, you guys have way too much fucking power. We need to fix this. So he invites them all to a dinner on an Easter Sunday. We're going to celebrate. And during this dinner, he asks them a question, pretty much, how many princes have you known? How many princes have been under rule during your time? And none of them could answer because there's been so damn many.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep up with.
And he's like, yeah, that's the fucking problem there. So he decides to solve this problem by leaving the room and having his soldiers lock the doors of his own home and burns it to the ground.
Well, those were the...
No, that was the peasants. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead. Now, these guys... I'm sorry. My bad. Wrong story.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Jerry, strike that from the record.
Yeah. Rewind. Y'all forget that. No, these guys, he had his soldiers come in and arrest them, lead them out beyond the walls, and kind of imposed his little trademark.
Johnny Appleseed here.
He spiked them. He put them up on spikes.
Now, we need to talk about.
We need to talk about these spikes because, folks, if you're imagining we're going to put a sharp stick up through somebody, run them up, and then put them up on the pole, and they're going to die in a few minutes.
Too much internal damage.
You guys are way too generous.
Yeah. They blunted this shit to the. They made these pikes as dull as could be done and still be effective.
They rounded these things up, greased them up, and inserted them into the orifice that was already there.
Now, there are some exceptions.
There's a few.
There's
a few of them that he would actually open up a spot in the side.
Or the taint. There's a couple times he would use horses to pull them onto the pike through the taint.
Yeah. He was very imaginative about the way he wanted. He wanted it to last.
The reason this rounded tip was what it was it would go into the body, and instead of piercing so many organs, it would move most of them kind of aside.
And eventually you'd be either resting on your clavicles, your ribs, or pinch some type of internal organ in between the two. But this could last days.
Yeah, they'd raise you up, and then your own body weight slowly pulls you further into this. And some people lasted for days.
Yeah. And he just left them there.
Yeah. That's,
there are some counts, whether it's true or not, but there is a wood carving relief of him setting up his dining table in the middle of this and enjoying
dipping his bread in the blood as it.
Now, there's a story of that he was dipping his bread in the blood and eating the flesh. Now, probably not.
But however,
good propaganda.
However, he did have there are later cases where he did have people boiled and had the other people that were involved with him eat them and there was
he had people as part of the flu. Yeah.
As to whether or not he was part of it, I don't know, but it was already in his wheelhouse, so we can't really rule it out.
Why would you shy away from it? It works for the narrative.
It doesn't even seem far out of character for him, right? Now, my favorite thing is what he did to the ones who didn't get spiked.
Absolutely.
He took... Now, you gotta imagine, these are people, these boilers, these are the Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos is of their time, right?
Yeah.
They have all the money in the world, all the power, but they don't hold any official power. So all the ones who were old and decrepit or sick or whatnot got put up on these spikes. And the ones who were capable of work were marched to build him a new fortress as slave labor. I fucking love it.
And 2 days forced march through rough terrain, up the mountains to a summit at the pass.
Where they found these kilns already built and ready for them to start making bricks.
And this is where he built his castle, the true Castle Dracula.
And now the property that these fuckers owned, all their wealth basically, because that's what wealth really was at the time, their wealth was all given to the peasants who became the new boyar class. It was wealth redistribution. And it was fucking beautiful. It was beautiful. You know, he say what you want about Vlad himself, he monster or hero. There's things about him where I'm back and forth, but this is one of the times where I'm like, that's
every crime in his territory was punishable by the same result.
And some of them weren't even.
You were being impaled.
Did you hear about the guy whose shirt was ragged?
Be it a murderer, be it a beggar, it didn't matter. You were getting the same treatment. You couldn't buy your way out of nothing.
No, he was uncompromised, uncorruptible.
Yeah, he had his way, he had his rules, and everybody had to follow.
He would disguise himself and go wandering around towns and shit. And he saw this one guy that his shirt was like kind of fucked up and ragged. And so he ends up bringing this guy to his court with his wife. He said, well, your wife must be a lazy lout because your shirt's not, she ain't fixing your shirts for you. So here's a new wife, and we're going to put your old one up on this stick here. And that's what happened. He fucking killed her. If your wife like cheated on you, now I don't know if it worked both ways for men. I imagine it probably would.
Yeah, I imagine it would.
But
he was
there are more stories of women that cheated on their husbands, and he'd cut off their breasts and feed it to the husband. Like the dude had no chill. But I do like how he put everybody on the same class. Your money means nothing to me.
He had a merchant show up into his court with gold and wares, come to him to ask for protection. And Vlad told him, just leave your stuff there, and you can sleep here in the palace. Everything will be fine. Well, the merchant goes back the next morning and realizes his money's gone. So he goes back to the prince to report it. The prince says, don't worry about it. We'll find the thief. We'll find your money. Everything's going to be fine. He tells his servants to go and replace the money and add 1 extra gold ducat. He tells the citizens to find this thief, or he's going to destroy the city himself.
This happens later, by the way.
So they find a thief. Whether it's the thief or not, who cares, who knows? They find a thief. Somebody's going up on a stick. And the merchant goes to his cart, finds his money there. He counts his money. He's like, wait a minute. He counts it again and again. He goes back to the prince and says, I found my money, but there's 1 extra gold ducat in there. And Vlad tells him, go on and be in peace. Had you not mentioned the extra ducat, you would be on the stick next to the thief.
Yeah, there's stories, and I believe it, of a gold cup being put in a poor neighborhood at the well.
Yeah.
Like a communal drinking cup.
He said anybody can drink from this cup, but it is not to leave the square. Nobody touched the fucking cup. They wouldn't even drink from it.
Years after his death, this cup was still there.
Wouldn't even drink from it. They're like, no.
I'd drink from it, but I'd make damn sure that I was witnessed. Everybody sees me put it back.
I would have done it one time. Right after he put it there while he was still standing there. You mean I get to drink out of a gold cup once in my life? Thank you, sir. It's right back there. Thank you. Have a good day. I'll never touch it again.
No interest in it.
Not having it. But yeah, this castle that was built by these slave voyeurs.
Penori or Peonry or whatever.
Apparently it was frowned upon for anybody to build their own fortifications in this way by the Hungarian, the Romanian, Hungarian, same folks, I guess. So they didn't like that. They were like, wait a minute, you're taking too much power for yourself, and you're doing things you're not supposed to be doing.
You didn't ask the church.
So they tried to back some of his rivals. Some guy named Vlad the Monk, and
it's kind of like
Dan.
Kind of fucking Dan. Fucking Dan. Look, that shit threw me off, right? I was listening to a podcast about Vlad, and they're going through fucking 1,000 Vlads, some Mahmoods, and Vladishavs, Radus, all these silly nonsense J.R. Tolkien names, right? And then Dan. I'm like, that can't be right. That cannot be fucking right. But sure enough, like Dan the Magnificent or some shit like that.
Well, this kind of pisses Vlad off. So he goes off on a few little incursions to raid the towns of these rivals of his. Basically burns the villages and
scorched earth. He didn't want any
impales anybody, women, children, men, didn't matter. He eliminated everybody in his freaking path. Like, yeah, fight me now that you got nobody to support you.
And this is also, I think, during the time when he's trying to get support from all these other European countries to get together and like move on a new crusade against the Ottomans, right? This is like he's trying to get everybody in on it, and everybody's like, I don't know, because if they lose, then the Ottomans take all of Europe.
It's a little bit later, but about the same few years.
Yeah,
same few years. All of this happened in a space, except for there was a gap while he was in prison. But all of this happened in a space
second and third,
a decade or so.
Yeah.
He also, after these raids, he got back and he had this nice idea, and this is the one that I jumped ahead to. He was looking around and seeing all the ill and the poor and the beggars and all this stuff in his lands, and it was like, this is a disgrace. This is ruining the image of my hometown. He was like, I'm not going to let this happen.
This is in Tarjavis?
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, try to wrap my mouth around that. Not going to happen.
Tarjavis plays a big
so
role.
He invites all these folks to a feast in his own home. And of course everybody shows up. Free food? Oh yeah, we're there.
California, no.
So they get there and they eat their fill, and they get to the point where they're silly, stupid, fucking drunk. They have drank their fill of wine and ate their fill of food. And he locks them inside and burns the whole damn place to the ground. Problem solved.
Disco Inferno.
And his own rationale was that these men live off the sweat of others. They're useless to humanity. And it is a form of thievery. Worse than the masked robber. Because if you are swift of hand and fleet of foot, you can avoid the robber. These guys take your money. Slowly. So he thought of it as worse than the common robber. So somewhere about this daggone time, some political stuff is happening up in Transylvania. And Vlad chooses a side of Szilagyi and Humantus over some guy or family of the Habsburgs. And this kind of pisses some folks off. Some citizens up in the area in Transylvania start to revolt a little bit over what they call some fiscal abuses by these guys that Vlad had chosen to back. And, well, Vlad, being the somewhat honest person that he is, runs up there and helps ransack the town. Kills everybody, puts them up on spikes. Y'all ain't doing this shit again.
Yeah, Dude had a whole lifetime of saying fuck it, and he fucking learned that.
So this really kind of pisses some folks off up there, and some other cities in the area start to claim that Vlad is actually working with the Turks, and shifted their support to the rest of the Dineshti family, specifically the brother of Vladislav, old Dan III, who is, why he's up there trying to get all pissed off and, killing all these motherfuckers.
I just pictured Dan the Magnificent being like Cletus the slack-jawed yokel in The Simpsons.
So he tried diplomacy. He sent letters of diplomacy trying to say, hey, look, we can resolve this. They didn't come back. They weren't answered.
Yeah, he did try.
So he was like, all right, fine. I'll just sanction all these, German Saxon merchants and, favor my own Wallachian merchants, and, we'll cost you some damn money. And it did. Some stories say that it damn near broke the Transylvanian, area. They didn't have any money coming in because all their money was going to taxes. So after he went into Transylvania and burned all these villages and stuff for his supporters, and arrested and impaled all these Saxon merchants that were trying to resist his new rules of trade, Dan III and his supporters turned over for a return to the original trade rules. They were supposed to be turned over. And one of these towns was supposed to pay retribution of 10,000 gold in war damages, and all this other good stuff was supposed to happen. Well, it didn't. They didn't follow their own rules. They're like, we'll do this, but no, we're not. So he goes in again. But he still didn't capture Dan III. Dan just kind of disappears.
Cletus the slack-jawed yokel.
But he's back through there burning, pillaging, putting people on spikes. Now they say this is where the Forest of the Impaled story comes from.
Oh, so that comes,
I don't think so.
The Forest of the Impaled comes out of
that comes after his Turkish
the Battle of the Torches.
Yeah,
after he tried to kill. Yeah,
but there are some stories where this is where the Forest of the Impaled comes. It's not. This is not the Forest of the Impaled.
We're not quite there yet.
Now he did impale a lot of people up there.
And just know that when we say Forest of the Impaled, we're not calling the lot of people. For us to say he impaled a lot of people, that's still nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, you're going to hear something very, very disturbing here shortly. But a few years later, old Dan III makes an appearance again. Comes up out of nowhere and tries to attack. Yeah, it didn't work. They were swiftly defeated.
Oh, shucks.
Dan was captured. Most of his army was impaled or flayed or boiled, dismembered in some way or another. Oh, Dan, he got a special treatment.
Can you imagine being boiled? It feels good at first, right? You've been carrying armor and you've been marching through the Carpathian Mountains.
Now you get a nice warm bath.
Nice. You're like, oh, thank God. And then,
hey, y'all can stop stoking the fire now. No, Dan, he gets a special treatment. Oh, Vlad gets the priest to come start reading him his rites, his burial rites.
His last rites, yeah. Not
as he is digging his own grave.
Yeah.
And when he's finally finished and the priest wraps it up, sword to the head, takes it right off.
Yeah. Which, honestly, a kinder death than he gave many.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. You kind of dropped the ball on this one.
He was so tired. Actually, what happened probably was that his pike making guy was kind of probably out of lumber,
We've got no more grease. Well, that's just not going to work.
Yeah. You probably can't find any tree in the area that dates back before 1500.
Now, during all this time, you got to remember the Turks still exist.
Yeah,
and they still want their tribute. Vlad's supposed to be paying a yearly tribute.
Taxes in years.
Now, his story has been, I just don't have the money because of all these wars and stuff, and I can't come down there to visit you because if I leave my territory, somebody's going to come and take it from me, and then you're not going to have a friendly person sitting on this throne. And my man believes it.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, so he's like, all right, no problem, cool, we'll catch up later.
Yeah, they were childhood friends-ish. You know what I mean?
But a letter gets intercepted at some point in time, and it kind of shows and proves that Vlad had actually formed a military alliance with the Hungarian king or the Romanian king, whichever one is named at this. I think it's the Romanian king. Posthumous. I can't remember his first name. I'm pretty sure that is exactly where we got it from, because he didn't last too long before he was.
Anything about him was said posthumously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's exactly where we got that term from. He got that letter intercepted, and that kind of pisses him off. So the Sultan, after all this time, had of trusting him, decided he was going to go up there, and he was going to. He first sent an envoy. He first sent an envoy.
Two of them. There was two envoys
to go and try to collect. We'll send guys up there to collect what you have, and we'll come back.
They were Muslim. Now, in Islam, men are supposed to. It's just like Judaism, in the respect that men are supposed to kind of keep their head covered. Women are too, but they're supposed to keep their head covered. That's why the Jewish people have those little yarmulkes, and the Islam has a very similar thing. So they're not supposed to take it off. But, Vlad being
like,
Vlad.
Remove your hats in my house.
Yeah, so what they actually did is they knew Vlad had this rule, so they wore hats over their hats. So they could do the traditional thing of they thought they were covered. Like, we have removed our...
We removed our hat, yeah.
Yeah. So Vlad says, oh, okay.
I respect your religion. Since you cannot remove your turbans, we're going to make sure they don't accidentally fall off.
Yeah, we can't have them falling off at all. I want to... So he nails them to their fucking skull. And this is one of those things where I'm on the fence. It's like, it's a good message for fuck you, buddy. And it's also come on. Let them have their religious freedom. But, at the time, you got to think the Ottomans and whatnot, they're not allowing religious freedom. That's kind of what the whole battle is over, Christianity and Islam.
So old Mahmed, that kind of pisses him off a little bit. So he's like, you know what?
Gets in his craw a little.
I'm gonna get this motherfucker back into my territory. So he hatches a plan to actually kidnap Vlad. Well, somehow Vlad finds out about this.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, motherfucker, watch this.
Well, yeah, they're only a couple hundred miles apart. They're next door neighbors.
Yeah, loose lips and all. But, he's like, all right, I'll attend this meeting. So, and he does. But he brings backup, following closely behind him.
Yeah. Just far enough that you can't.
He gets there, and somehow this damn attack works out to the point where he disguised himself. This is the first time he does this. He gets there and he disguises himself as a Turk, since he speaks fluent Turkish.
Yeah.
And gets the guard to lower their defense in some way that his cavalry can come in and just completely ransack the place.
Yep.
Destroyed the entire fucking fort.
The guard, my understanding of it is like when he goes into the camp or whatever, the guard, the Turkish guards kind of follow him. Their attention's not on back there. They're going with Vlad. They're escorting him to the Sultan.
Yeah, they've heard some stories, so they know they need to keep an eye on him. They don't know how bad it is yet.
Yeah, they don't have good intel on the surrounding area, which I see that again and again in ancient warfare. It's like they'll march out onto this field and not even look at the fucking woods. Like, I don't get it. No one would hide in there. So basically, he catches them with their pants down because they're all watching him. So yeah.
But he doesn't stop there. After he destroys this fort, he's like, all right, motherfucker. And he crosses into Ottoman territory and starts raising villages and towns all through the northern area.
He poisoned water supplies. He burned crops. He wanted to make sure that any force, he wanted to build a wall between Wallachia and the Sultan, so that any force coming across would have no resources, no food, no shelter, no water, that they would have to march across this and die, They were to be at least weak by the time they got to Wallachia.
And a little bit disheartened when you're sitting there watching all this death and destruction.
Yeah,
you're having to march through miles
you're
of it
marching
to get
through
where you're
Mordor. You know what I mean? The desolation of Smaug.
Now, he knows this is going to piss off fucking Mahmed.
Yeah, he's not pleased.
He sends a letter off to the king of Romania, basically stating, we have killed men. Numbers up to 28,000, not counting the ones we have burned or whose heads were not caught by our swordsmen. As proof of this, he supposedly sends the noses that were cut off the faces of the men that
and he blinds the people carrying the noses. He sends it back with Turkish soldiers, but he blinds them. So they're just wandering blind behind this horse, carrying all these baskets of fucking, and God forbid you drop it.
So he tries to use this as like, all right, any retribution for this is coming. That's going to come through Wallachia is going to keep going right up into your territory as well. So he tries to spark a new crusade.
Yeah, he's been working with that.
Well, the new king up there is a little bit more worried about his own political career and his own life up there. It's not all that daggone interest and be like, whatever. And well, that kind of hurts Vlad's plans a little bit. He does his best and he's holding them off a little bit. A little bit of strategic backups and withdrawals and some guerrilla warfares and stuff from this Turkish assault back onto him. And as they're backing up, they'll fight, divide the forces, break them up a little bit, do some harm and stuff. Then they'll retreat. But like I said, they'll burn everything that was there. They'll poison the water. He paid diseased folks to go into the camps to spread diseases and stuff.
Chemical warfare, biological warfare, and we're about to come to psychological warfare. What years do you have this at?
Somewhere 1462.
So July 17th, 1462, right? Is when he tries to assassinate Mehmed. Right?
Yeah.
So it's the middle of the night, and there's the slide that I have up now is actually a painting of this battle called the Battle of the Torches. They go in the middle of the night to Mehmed's army camp, and he causes a distraction with an attack, and he goes into the camp himself, kind of disguised as a Turkish soldier,
as a Turk,
to look for Mehmed's tent. He's unable to find it, right? And so after this actually very successful battle, but he doesn't get Mehmed, he retreats.
Now, had his other general been as brave as him and his 5,000 men were, they would have probably done it.
Yeah.
And had Mehmed not decided to say, you know what, I'm out, and went out the back door.
Well, Mehmed sees his remaining forces in the morning, sends them after. He's like, fuck them, get them. Sends them after Tepish. So they get to Tarjavist, right? And they get there, and this is the capital of Wallachia. You know what I mean? And they get there, and there's old ribby dog and tumbleweeds, and the fireplaces are still smoldering. They're still washed on the lines, but everybody's gone. These Turkish soldiers walk 3 miles through the city. And they get to the outside of the city and they go around a bend. They're looking like, where the fuck is everybody? And then they find them. It was 7 acres of impaled people called the Forest of the Impaled. Now, some of these were Turkish soldiers. They've been also Tepish had been planning this for some time. He had been stockpiling corpses, and the remainder had to have been the citizens of Tarjavist.
You're talking about 20,000
people. A minimum of 20,000.
In an area that is probably, like I said, 7 acres, about 2 miles wide and a half a mile deep.
I think it comes down to like 1.7 miles square.
So these guys,
as far as the eye can see.
So Mahmed is like, nah.
Yeah, the army turns around and goes home, and they can't. He couldn't turn them around. Yeah. You can't.
Yeah, Mahmed himself says, I can't take land from a man who's willing to do this. He's got greater things to do, and leaves.
Yeah, he wins basically on cycle. It was the most horrific thing, and these people are people who live in the most violent time of our history. They have seen violence on a scale unimaginable to people nowadays. But they see this, and it fucks them up. You got to know that Turkish soldiers 40 years later were waking up in the middle of the night screaming, seeing these faces on these fucking pikes. You know, like...
Now, somehow they talked Ahmed into turning back around and going and trying to actually fight. They did. They actually turned around. They turned around and went back to fight, but they were defeated.
Yeah,
quickly. They didn't have the goal. They didn't have the goal.
What ones didn't just keep going home? Like,
that battle didn't go very well, so they turned around and retreated. And it wasn't long after that old Radu was sent in to do the job. And Radu comes in with a completely different plan. Instead of trying to go in for fighting, he goes in to win over the people. He does a pretty good job. Not only does he get the vast majority of the boyars, he gets part of Vlad's army itself to join him. And while they march into the capital, Vlad decides he's just going to take his shit because he's no longer recognized as the damn ruler. So and his wife throws herself off the ramparts of the castle into the river because she'd rather be eaten by the fish than be taken by the Turks.
Yeah.
So he leaves. Vlad retreats up into Transylvania. King Mathis of Hungary at this time decides, I'm going to support you, and we're going to help you fight these folks back off and take your shit back.
Yeah.
It was a ruse.
Yeah.
So while they're fucking marching, he had his men just arrest him and bring him back into the
we get to talk about his stay in
Hungarians. So he was in prison with the Hungarians for a while.
He was actually in Serbia. The prison was in Serbia that he stayed in, but it was part of it was actually like right outside of Belgrade, which is now Serbia, but it wasn't then.
And here's some pretty weird shit happens too. Yeah, weird shit. You just talked about 20,000 people on spikes outside of town. Now we're going to talk about some weird shit. There's some weird stories coming out here. Like, he would capture mice and have birds brought to him so that he could impale them in his room.
And the king would drag him out when enemy like Turkish people were coming to the court or whatnot.
Yeah,
he would drag Vlad out to have him there.
Yeah,
just because
I've got Vlad. Because the Impaler King is mine.
Yeah, yeah. If you piss me off, I have the devil in the dungeon.
I did what you couldn't do, and I'll use him against you.
Yeah, and it was actually fairly effective. I mean, and I guess prison. I don't understand their prison. Because when you think 1400s prison, you think like Tower of London. But no,
I'm sure it was like that for a little while. But after a short time, he was more on house arrest in the castle.
Yeah, like you ain't going nowhere, buddy. We ain't giving you nothing bigger than a toothpick. So
yeah, and we've got every guard here watching.
Dude had to sign his
We know what you're capable of. It's not happening here.
He was the first prisoner ever to be made to write letters in crayon.
So after a while of this, somehow Vlad apparently earned some trust with this new king here.
Right?
I don't know how it works.
How do you...
Some political bullshit had to be going on down south, and he was like, I need the devil. So this king gives him an option. He says, all right, if you convert to Catholicism, I'll give you your freedom. I was like, fuck yeah. So he gets a brand new wife out of the deal, gets his freedom, and...
I love how wives are just giving out, like, gate checks. All right, well, here's your freedom, and here's your wife, and...
He meets back up with old Stephen, and they go in, and they take the throne back for the beginning of his third reign.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this one was probably the shortest. Word got down south, and then the Turks was like, "Yeah, that ain't gonna fucking happen. We can't let this shit get back in. He can't put roots down. We got to stop this now." So they send in a force of approximately 300,000 men.
Nope.
Against what is probably about 25,000.
Yeah, and some of these 300,000 men are going to be extra vigilant because they probably saw the forest. Like they probably, it was still there, right?
I imagine. Well, this is 12 years later.
There's still pikes. You got to think for years after.
I'm pretty sure Radu probably took that shit down.
You know, and I don't know, man. For years after his death, that cup was untouched. You know, and and the thing is, it's like
even Radu didn't touch
killed everybody in the capital city, but it was people moved back in. And so they're sitting there looking at, going out for coffee in the morning, and they're looking up the road there, and they can see the vultures still pecking at Uncle Joe.
They realized that everything he did was for the good of Wallachia.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the same argument gets made by Russians today about Stalin's starving campaigns. You know.
Well, it's pretty much close to the end of his reign here. He gets into this big battle, and this is where we really don't know exactly what happened. But this is the end of Vlad. He gets killed in this battle. Now, whether it was actually in battle during a somewhat fair fight, or it was an assassin that was planted in his court for a while, we don't know.
It all melts into propaganda there.
But he was taken down. His head was taken and sent back to Mahmed to put on a spike.
Now there are legends of that's not the fucking chapel's actually there, but like this church that's now underwater, but that his body was buried underneath the like the entrance stone to this chapel that's now underwater. But they're not. You don't know. No one knows. It's just like the legend of like Blackbeard's.
Well, if he was, his body's gone. Probably a good target for grave robbers. I mean, because he was buried with some shit.
I mean, yeah, if he was buried there at all.
Yeah.
If he was decapitated, who knows?
They probably just left his body there to be picked by corpse robbers.
Yeah, it was like, at that point, it's just another body.
But yeah, old Vlad, he made a mark on the world pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's remembered to some as a badass tyrant, but to others, he is a damn national hero.
Yeah. So I reached out to our music guy, Wickless Sky, because he lives in Serbia, right, in Belgrade, and I didn't really realize how close Serbia was involved in all this. I hit him up.
Wasn't Belgrade founded by Vlad?
Might have been. Shit. I can pull up my Google machine.
That would be interesting. I think there was a town. I think it sounds like that Vlad actually founded. No, it was around for a while.
Yeah. They added an E. But yeah, so I asked him, I was like, so what do you have any insight on Vlad Tepes? And his response, let me pull that up. I said, so do you have any insight on Vlad Tepes since we're doing him this week? And he says, him being our neighborly despot, decorating his Transylvanian castle lawn with stakes that pierce thousands of Ottoman Empire's finest alive, which is where they got the idea to do it at us during the next conquests. And for that being called a demon, later through legends and lore, more precisely a vampire, and that is actually a Serbian word originally. But that, and maybe a little something, like, most. So I said, so he's not celebrated in Serbia. And he said, well, he is Dracula, but that's like so old that no one gives shit anymore. I said, well, what about the view in the area of him being, him being here is viewed as like kind of a Christian hero in like a lot of circles. And he says, well, that sucks for Christians because the tale goes about how much of a demon he became, ruined by sadness and trauma, killing off Turks in a not very Christian and or sanitary way. So, yeah.
Well, Christian ways back then were a little different.
Yeah, I mean, especially during, you can do anything you want to a non-Christian. But you look at the Forest of the Impaled; those weren't all non-Christians. They were just good. He filled those spikes with what was left in the town. You know. So yeah, he's in Romania. There's statues to him. Um,
Yeah, that I didn't know. As much of a fanboy as I was back in my 20s of this guy, I
yeah,
had no idea that he actually had
he was
statues.
there's
to him.
the slide I have up now is a Renaissance era painting from a Serbian artist, and it supposedly depicts Pilate sentencing Jesus to be crucified. And as you look at the picture, that picture is actually Vlad as Pilate. There's actually a few paintings where he has been given like the bad guy in the Bible parts, not just Pilate, but there was other ones too, and it's always Vlad. So he became the devil, you know, to places outside of Wallachia and Romania.
To the point where the definition of the word Dracula changed from dragon to devil at some point in history. There.
Yeah, and 400 years later, his legend was still so great that not local, but a British author by the name of Bram Stoker, visiting the area, picks up these legends of this monstrous man and incorporates the legend into his work Dracula. Actually, it was a groundbreaking book at the time. Horror novels did kind of exist, but his wasn't a novel so much as it was almost the way we do found footage films now. Like, if you read Dracula, it's all in, like, newspaper articles and journal entries and, you know, and like, the best version of the movie ever made with Keanu Reeves, it's set up like that. There's always, like, somebody narrating a letter or you know, a diary or shit like that. You know what I mean? So, it was unusual. It was a groundbreaking book in its time, and it immortalized Vlad. You know what I mean? It gave him it breathed new life into this monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there aren't many people that shouldn't know this guy.
At
You might know every bit of the detail, as you know we've tried to go over today. But
most people
at least
know
knowing where the story of Dracula came from, and that this guy impaled people.
Yeah, at the very least, they know that the story of Dracula the monster from the horror stories is based on a real guy. And if that's all they know, then they have to know this guy was a fucking monster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you look at the story, compared to the actual Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula is kind of tame. You know, kind of a heartbroken, lovelorn. Yeah. Polite. And you know, it's and that gave rise to like the vampire legend of today. Now vampires have been around for a while. You know, you had like the Strigoi in like Romani culture. You had apparently vampire is comes from a Serbian etymology. I believe them. You know, it's so in Central Europe you already had this kind of thing. And have you seen anything about the vampire skeletons? Right?
Nah.
Where people who were believed to be vampires had like bricks shoved into their mouths or they were buried face down. But you'll find graves all over Central Europe and Eastern Europe with people with fucking bricks in their mouths and shit. And that's why. It was because they were thought to be a vampire. But interesting little factoid.
Yeah. But yeah, folks, that's pretty much the story of old Vlad Dracula. Pretty much a badass of his day.
Yeah, and like I said, he did good and evil, like often with the same stroke. You know,
you say what you will, he was a just person, though. Yeah, he was that. He believed in equality.
For sure, he would kill anyone. But yeah, folks, if you like that, you know, be sure
hit those like buttons,
hit subscribe, follow us. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StonersPointPod. We are on, you can find our Facebook page, Stoners Point Podcast. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us, you can hear us pretty much everywhere that podcasts are played except for Google Podcasts and Stitcher. Yeah, there's going to be a YouTube slideshow video of this hitting. Yeah, and if you like our show, you know, follow us along. We got bonus content that comes out every week. There's also a second show Charlie Manson's Fanny Pack. We do a bonus content show of Skeeter's Bar Talk about South Park, and we break down what the episodes are really like, the subtext of South Park, right? The philosophy of it. So yeah, guys, if you like it, check us out all those places. Give us a comment. You can email us at stonerspointpod@gmail.com. Next week, be sure to tune in for our. We talked about the devil. Now we need to talk about the devil's lettuce.
Hell yeah!
This is going to be a devil month. If you join our Patreon, you can vote for our topic. As it stands, the topic is leaning towards satanic panic. So pretty much everything this month is going to be the devil. And hopefully we'll have some of the devil's lettuce while we talk about the devil's lettuce.
And we'll actually find out for sure, hopefully, whether the devil's actually the bad guy.
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to talk about the origin of Satan himself for the satanic panic, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, I don't even have to do research on that. I have Anton LaVey's books on the desk as we speak. Actually, it's the only book on display in this room. Is Anton LaVey's Satanic Rituals. So, yeah, guys. So, check us out. If Mike, you got anything else you want to add? Plug's the plug.
Just don't wind yourself up on a spike, folks.
Yeah, fuck around and find out.